Hi everybody, Jay the Fish Guy here. So today we have something new. The local bank that I deal with has a business of the month spotlight that they do in their lobby. You get to have a table, set up some of your wares, so to speak. And they asked me if I wanted to be the business of the month for September. I said, sure. Can I put a tank in? They're like, oh yes, absolutely, that'd be awesome. So I had this given to me. It was from a client that they were looking to downsize. They had a couple of tanks going. They just didn't want this one anymore. They were having a hard time finding replacement bulbs for the lighting. It's a Sarah all-in-one unit. Very, very similar to the old school current aquapods and the oceanic biocubes. So the whole all-inclusive power compact lighting in the hood, filtration built into the back of the tank. Pretty standard nowadays, but it's an older unit. The lighting doesn't work. So the plan is I'm going to gut it and put in an LED light that I have kicking around. I have an older Fluval. It's kind of like a brick, one of their nano lights, I think it was. Pretty capable on a smaller tank. Could still grow softies and LPS. So I'm going to set up a small little Nano Reef tank with this. And I figured I'd make a little video series, at least 2 parts. We're going to gut the hood and kind of DIY that all together. I'll go through what I plan on doing with the filtration, that kind of stuff. Nothing too major, but I figured you guys like to watch and see what I'm up to. And yeah, so let's start taking apart the lighting, get that old stuff out of there, and see how we're going to mount the new lighting. Alright, so the hood on this is actually kind of unique with this whole Sarah setup. You can tilt it back, and you got the little legs that'll hold it in place, one on each side. One is obviously sufficient. The other option you can do is actually push it back a little bit, and then the whole thing just kind of slides out of the way, and you can access everything fully back in the back compartments, which was kind of a pain on some of the earlier. I think Current USA had one of the originals, like Aquapod, I think was their version. Oceanic had a BioCube. This is very similar to that style, the whole all-inclusive, enclosed hood, power compact, bulb-driven kind of setup. So what we need to do is we're going to pull this whole assembly off, then we can get it down on the table and work on it a little bit easier, because I got to take all these screws off, gut this entire hood, and then see what I can do for mounting that LED light. So first things first, we'll start taking out some of these screws. I've never actually taken one of these apart before, but I'm hopeful that it's pretty straightforward like a lot of them. If I'm in the way with my shoulder, I apologize. This was just really the best angle for what I have going on in my living room. And the back is where the filtration is pretty standard stuff. They have a chamber, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. This one on the right, where all the intake grates are, has just one big giant large foam block, which is your mechanical whole pre-filter. Your return pump is in the chamber all the way on the left. You get a nice little spray bar, heater chamber here, and then you can put like a bag of biological media in there. They had a whole bunch of this Sarah Siperax, which is a sintered glass media. They always talked great things about that because the surface area is supposed to be huge. Sintered glass is supposed to be amazingly porous. So the biological capacity of that bit of media is equivalent to a lot more of any other brand, or so they claim. And people have done videos and tests on them, and it's supposed to be pretty good stuff. So I'm going to keep that in place, maybe run a bag of carbon. So let's see if we can get this whole thing off. Not so much. It's never that easy. Maybe the other way.
just failing at life over here. I would have thought that would have removed that clip. And plastic is always fun because you don't want to crack or break anything on the way out. Alright, well, in the interest of keeping this video a tad on the shorter side, I'm going to take a break, figure out what I need to do, and I'll be right back. Alright, didn't take too long. Just had to figure out where it was still being attached to. There's actually a plastic clip back here, so that even though I took out the screws there, it's still being held on underneath. And it was a little bit sketchy because it sounded like it was going to break, but once I was able to pop it off like that, the whole thing just comes right off. So that will make disassembly so much more friendly. And we'll be able to get in there, again, gut out all the old electrical and cords and everything, and hopefully get our new light mounted in there. Alright, so this has a plastic cover plate here that's supposed to protect everything from moisture, because it's obviously sitting in an enclosed space directly above the water with potentially a little bit of splashing involved. So this Sarah setup did a good job of keeping everything what looks to be relatively tight and waterproof and away from any moisture, so that's good. Not that it's helping us out any because we're ditching everything, but the fact that they designed it correctly from the beginning. I mean, these European companies are generally pretty good. Sarah, Eheim, you know, Hagen/Fluval, they make some good stuff as well. Not to say that there isn't other good companies out there, but I'm always impressed by the quality and the construction of the European stuff. Alright, 4, 8, 10 little screws. Those are out of the way. This cover plate off. Had a bit of an O-ring there. Some of it is disintegrated over time, but for the most part it actually held up pretty good. So, more screws. Get our bulb out of here. Looks to be, originally it had a 18 watt 10K bulb. Now the fact that they had this as salt water, they only started becoming a customer more recently, and I never helped them with any of their setup. If I had, I probably would have suggested a 50-50 bulb for a little bit better of a look. I was trying to figure out why it looked so yellow when I first saw it and helped them take it down, and that would explain why. Just a single 10K bulb isn't very attractive for a saltwater tank. You don't really get the best colors out of everything. Really tends to wash everything out. Reminds me of the old days of 10K metal halides, or even worse if you were really a diehard and you're trying to grow SPS and you had the old Awaski bulbs. I think they were like 6700K or something crazy like that. But they were extremely yellow. So another half dozen or so screws holding everything together here. Get all these ripped out and see what kind of space we're working with. My initial thought, without having seen anything, is I'm hoping I can maybe cut the plastic shield and possibly fit in the light fixture and kind of securely attach it to the plastic shield, maybe with some liberal use of zip ties or something to that effect. I don't want to make anything too permanent, just in case I decide not to continue with this setup. And then to just then mount the plastic cover plate back in the shield, and I'll feed the wiring through the grommets and all that good stuff, and with any luck, it'll be as simple as that and plug and play friendly. The switch is actually on the fixture itself, so it wouldn't be terribly convenient to try to turn on and off, but since I am going to do a timer, because I want everything to be as friendly as possible for these guys, just so nobody's forgetting and leaving the lights on and then the tank looks like hell because there's algae everywhere. One last little screw. Oh, one more. I don't really care if I can't access the switch, so that's kind of a moot point. I just want it to look good and function. And, I mean, after having used LEDs for so long now, it's really hard for me to get into a tank, at least a tank of this size, with just a single power compact bulb. It just doesn't have the same look, the same brightness. Just doesn't do it for me. So, screw there. Just gotta get the wiring disconnected and continue gutting everything out of it. Just easier to rip it because I don't have a set of pliers on me. Let's see. That one's disconnected. This has a little plastic grommet here, which has little teeth that dig in. Perfect. Okay, so reflector out of the way, and a whole bunch more stuff to unscrew. I will put this into a fast forward just so you don't have to wait for the probably 5 or 10 minutes this is going to take me to unscrew everything, and I'll catch you after I'm done. And voila! We have a completely gutted hood assembly. But we can still get rid of our O-ring here that we don't need. We can still mount this back to it without any issues. So again, my goal that I hope to do is to be able to cut this out and just literally slide that other light into place and attach it down, again, with some like zip ties running up and around it, just holding it into place. Again, quick, easy, friendly. You know, everybody loves zip ties. As long as it's not getting bounced around too terribly much, it shouldn't really be an issue. It shouldn't really shift. Probably going to be happy that I'm cutting out the panel, because this, you know, when plastic gets old and they've had a light and a heat source right next to it, it tends to get pretty foggy, pretty bad, and that's definitely the case with this one. So, I'm going to call it good for there for right now, and we'll start back up again when I start to try to put the light in. Alright, so here we have our LED light fixture. Again, it's made by Fluval. I don't remember the exact model. I've had this kicking around in my basement for actually quite some time now. Pretty basic, has a switch on the front, as you can see here. Goes from the standard all on or just simply a moonlight setting. Extremely bright for what it is. I don't remember the power output or the ratings of the LEDs. I know they came out with a more modern one down the line. This is the first ever one they came out with. They had light bars as well, longer for, you know, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, and they were pretty decent. Again, this light was potent enough to grow softies and LPS on also a nano tank. Alright, so let's get started cutting our clear protective panel. So the idea behind this is we're going to cut a hole that's roughly the size of where the LEDs are, which is a fair amount smaller than the entire fixture size, with the idea that the unit will be able to rest on the plastic protective plate, and then we'll zip tie around it and strap it to that plate. And there'll be little to no risk of anything going wrong in terms of it falling in, because it can't easily fall into the hole that we're making here. So literally just going to trace out around where we want the hole to be. A piece of paper for a straight edge. Nice and simple. I'll probably end up using a scroll saw that I have downstairs in the basement to cut this out. I won't make a video of that, but that's the tool of choice for this. I have a jigsaw. I don't have the right blade for it. The teeth just simply aren't fine enough. So what I'll end up doing is actually drilling a hole at each corner, feeding the saw blade through, and then just working my way around from one hole to the next and cutting this out. So with any luck, this should work out pretty good. Okay, so here we are with our finished product. Went pretty smoothly with the exception of my first hole. You can see on the bottom left there at the edge of the opening. Pushed a little too hard without any wood behind it and ended up making a small crack. The other ones went fine. I just adjusted the pressure accordingly. So what we're going to do, we're going to feed zip ties through around on the other side of the plate. We're going to then set the light on top and zip tie around it. With any luck, that'll be strong enough to hold everything in place nice and tight, even when the canopy is open to service things like getting to the corals or getting to the filtration, things like that. One isn't quite enough to get a bite, so we'll end up having to use a second zip tie, which isn't the end of the world, still just as strong. Just like that. So, get it into position, make sure we're overlapping on all sides, and cinch it down tight, and we should be good to go. Perfect. So now we'll get the back one in place, and should be all set, and this should be more than enough rigidity and be able to hold it in place, whether we're opening, closing, gets bumped, what have you. And again, the idea is to leave it semi-quasi-temporary. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this tank after I'm all said and done with using it as a display at the bank. I may end up keeping it, may end up selling it, somebody may want it, I'm not quite sure yet. But for the time being, this should be more than capable enough. No obstruction with the light, and it seems to be pretty sturdy, not shaking around at all, so this looks like a win. And before anybody makes comments, yes, I know I could have done it better, differently, what have you, with what I had available to me, this was the easiest way to do it. Alright, so we have our light, we have our gutted hood, everything's all set and ready to be put back together. So let's get a couple of screws in, we'll feed the wire through one of the back holes in the canopy to make sure that's all set, and yeah, we can pretty much call this a win, I think. We'll see how it looks once it gets all together, but I think this should work out great. Nice little modern update to an otherwise what was going to end up in the trash. These folks just simply were all set. They didn't want it anymore, and it's always nice to reuse, recycle, and make new again. Because I mean, the tank is still great. The pumps worked. Everything was fine. It was just the lighting. So I mean, with these older systems, if you can find one for cheap money, someone just looking to get rid of, you can gut these hoods and put in your own stuff pretty inexpensively. Generally, I mean, you may even have something kicking around like I did, and get this whole nano tank back up and running for pretty short money. And here we have the finished product. So much brighter than what that old Power Compact would have been. I wish it was working so I could have done a before and after comparison, but if any of you have ever used those old PC bulbs, especially the smaller ones, you know that they're just nowhere near as bright as what some of the more modern LEDs are. And this isn't even really all that modern or high-end, but still just an amazing little light. So I'm really looking forward to getting this tank set up and having a nice little Nano Reef going. Really looking forward to having some people see this set up down at the bank, especially people that just aren't even familiar with the concept that you can keep corals in your home aquarium, let alone in such a small tank. So very excited about that and this whole project in general. That's going to be it for this episode. This is the part 1. As I get things rolling and get this tank set up, I'll make a part 2. So keep your eyes open for that. Make sure to have your notification settings clicked on the little bell there so you know when I make a new video and you can catch up on when part 2 comes out. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching, and we'll see you next time.